So we have a question on 5 hindrances, and so it starts with a quote from a sutta that generic description of the hindrances from the sutta, saying, "These 5 things are obstructions, hindrances that encircle the mind, weaken the wisdom." What 5? Sensual desire is an obstruction. It's a hindrance encircling the mind, weakener of the wisdom. Ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse, and doubt is an obstruction, a weakener of wisdom. These are the 5 obstructions, hindrances, encirclers of the mind, weakeners of the wisdom. And then the question is then says, previously I was addicted to getting pleasure by following whatever felt good, which only led me to agitation and depression. Fortunately, I made the effort to investigate my situation, and by doing so, I gained perspective on it, seeing the danger in my choices that led to my addictions and subsequent depression. I then made effort in cultivating virtue and restraint, which led to contentment, but also to gaining an even higher perspective. I'm now able to see certain bad mental states that I'm addicted to, or simply cannot stop indulging in when they appear, specifically the 5 hindrances. I welcome lust, indulge anger, incline towards distraction, play with my restlessness, and wrestle with confusion. So, although I do not lose my previously cultivated level of perspective by becoming unrestrained and unvirtuous, I'm still struggling to attain a higher perspective due to my subtle involvement with these 5 obstructive mental states. How can I cleanse my mind of these things? What am I missing? So when the practice reaches the stage of you recognizing the 5 hindrances for what they are, but then at the same time not giving in to unvirtuous behavior and losing your restraint, that's pretty much the indicator where you should really be seeking some stricter forms of seclusion and isolation, because by increasing solitude, again, not as a rule of thumb, it doesn't mean that whenever you increase solitude you'll get to see the subtle states. No, because that can be done for the wrong reasons, and prior development, as we often speak about, like there is an order of develop. The gradual training requires developing the gradual developing in a certain order. So solitude as a next step in your development comes pretty much after. As the Buddha said, you have been established in virtue, established in sense restraint, established in the right view, and so on. Because yes, as the question points out, they are obviously higher to not indulge with, because they're on the level of the mind, their mental state, deeply rooted mental pressures, pressure of sensuality, pressure of ill will, and if that person is still living in the environment that is at the same time bombarded with other sort of sense objects and pulls and distractions and duties and requirements and so on, you simply won't have enough composure and enough strength to endure things on that mental level without either dismissing it or giving into it and so on. So that's why surmounting in order to surmount the 5 hindrances, then the secluded lifestyle is necessary, and that's exactly why then the jhana would follow from there. And goes same in the gradual training. The Buddha says basically that once having been established in sense restraint, virtue, watchfulness, not giving in, not breaking the precepts, purifying your mind of the mental states, in other words, not giving in to bad behaviors and bad cultivations, then you can go to solitude, and then that solitude will bear fruit towards the complete seclusion from these unwholesome states, even internally. And that's then the description carries on, the first jhana and the second jhana, and so on in the suttas. So if this is the factual state of affairs, as in if whoever asked this is clear about their level of progression, and this is accurate, then pretty much the only thing you specifically, the person who asked the question, needs to do is try and spend prolonged periods of time in seclusion. And then when these deeply rooted pressing mental states, hindrances, the encirclers of the mind and weakeners of the wisdom arise, well, there will be nothing else taking away your energy, your time, distracting you, and you will be able to then apply the same principle towards those mental states, principle of not welcoming, not delighting, not running away, not distracting from, and certainly not acting out of. And in that seclusion you can endure those things, and the more you endure it, then the basically the less fuel is being provided for those states to return in the same intensity or at the same strength. So that's why it will take time. It's not like, okay, now I go to seclusion and boom, hindrances disappear. No, you have to be living and dwelling in seclusion and preferring seclusion in order to do the work that now you recognize needs doing, addressing the 5 hindrances on the level of the mental state. So yes, for somebody that might not take that long, but for other people it can take practically a long time, which doesn't, it doesn't matter how long it takes. Basically, it's the work worth doing. So so then the next step would be seclusion, and then that would result in that higher perspective, or like let's say higher levels of disowning of your own mental states correctly, without dismissing them or just kind of applying the theoretical view that, oh, this is not mine, this is anatta. You basically need to have endured the mental hindrances long enough without acting out of them, endure their pressure, endure their pain, endure their discomfort, endure their dart, burning, ember, all these descriptions that the Buddha gave, and then you will realize this is not worth holding. This is not worth possessing. Whatever they're pointing at for me, to have or to deal with, it's not worth engaging. And that's how I free myself from the burning embers of sensuality, or the pressured, rabid kind of anger and whatever else kind of emotions might take over the mind. And as for our more general audience that's equally sort of interested in overcoming hindrances, just to emphasize again, it's important to recognize that there is a certain order of development. And although yes, it would be great if you could just enter jhana here and now and then deal with everything else, that's not how it works. That's not how the gradual training works, and that's not what the suttas describe. So by all means, strive to uproot the hindrances, but you need to recognize that in order to even start seeing the hindrances correctly, as we said in a number of previous talks, you need to recognize that first and foremost, your behavior, your sense restraint, your watchfulness need to have been thoroughly developed in face of that pain and pressure of sensuality and ill will and external circumstances. So depending on what stage of the gradual training a person might be, the practice is then either to develop virtue, unshakable virtue, seeing the danger in the slightest fault, recognizing the intentions behind your actions as the root of the what defines wholesome is wholesome, unwholesome is unwholesome, taking responsibility for it, which then results in watchfulness, and then the pressures of the hindrances which are exhibited in that broadest mental sense is going to become more and more discernible, more and more obvious, and then you can actually address it on that level without needing to act out of it, without needing to resist it, try to outrun it, and so on. So if a person, through self-honesty, discovers that their virtue still hasn't been thoroughly developed, they still break it, sense restraint, they still give in, then again, be honest about it and recognize that although you have a burning desire and a strong determination, inspiration to deal with the hindrances, you won't be dealing with them until these prerequisites are addressed. But then, if you address the prerequisites, you will kind of be dealing with the hindrances even if you don't necessarily want to specifically. So like even in this original question, the fact that this person recognizes the pressures on the level of these bad mental states that are affecting him on that level, but he's still not breaking the virtue or losing the restraint, means okay, no, that's already a beginning of correctly addressing the hindrances. The fact that they were able to ask a question, how do I cleanse my mind of specifically the hindrances on this level, without breaking virtue, without losing sense restraint, means like, okay, so the phenomenon of that, the width of the hindrances, the domain of the hindrances is becoming clearer. And if you really want to feel that domain, that pressure properly to the full extent and learn how not to act out of it, that's where the seclusion comes in. It will amplify it, it will clarify it, it will unclutter it, and it will be felt in its like a full extent. So yeah, it's not going to be pleasant, but how unpleasant, as I often say, how unpleasant it will be depends on, how addicted to sensuality and acting out of ill will you were before. So one way or the other, you will have to go through some withdrawals and not acting out of that pressure on the level of the mental hindrances. And then yes, if if sometimes that pressure gets too much, or if the solitude gets interrupted, that's fine. That work is not automatically undone for as long as you don't break the virtue and become unrestrained, for as long as you don't go too far the other way. So if something, demands you to sort of come out of your solitude and deal with and so on, you will be able to address it and then go back to it and pick up where you left, pretty much. Although, the hindrance of doubt might make you doubt that and make you want to break the precepts and everything else for the sake of dealing with hindrances again. But again, person who has been able to recognize the hindrances on the level of the mental states for what they are, will see this as a doubt. They're just trying to trick you. So as long as the virtue remains intact, seeing the danger in the slightest fault, being mindful of your intentions, even if you come and go out of solitude, the work that you did before in that solitude is not automatically lost. So when you go back, you pick up pretty much the level you left it at.